Coming up next here on the Metal Command podcast, the review so many of you have been asking me for and asking me about, my review of the upcoming Helloween album entitled Giants and Monsters, which comes out August 29th, 2025 on Reigning Phoenix Music. I deep dive into the album and I give a track-by-track review. All of that coming up next, right now, on the Metal Command podcast.
You are listening to the Metal Command podcast.
Greetings and welcome back to another edition of the Metal Command podcast. Tony here with you. Always excited to be here with everybody today, and I'm really excited to dedicate an entire episode to the upcoming Helloween album entitled Giants and Monsters. But before I get into that, if you do want to support the program and you like what you see and hear on this podcast, by all means, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any kind of content. And if you follow the show on any other form of social media, such as Facebook or anywhere else, give the show a like and a follow there. I'm really excited to talk about this album, folks, because I have to admit, this is probably one of the best Helloween albums I've ever heard. You know, there's no band on this show I have followed more closely than Helloween. And I've taken a lot of time to listen to this record. And there's just so much cool stuff in it. I could talk about this for like 2 hours. Before I get into the album, let me give you some quick details. It does come out, obviously, August 29th, 2025. In the show notes, I'm putting up some pre-order links. I'm going to put up the link tree from Reigning Phoenix Music, which lists every place you can pre-order the album around the world. And I'm going to post a link to the Pumpkin Store, which, by the way, has their own vinyl variant and, of course, 40th anniversary t-shirts for pre-order there as well. So I'm going to post those links in the show notes. The album has a lot of really cool vinyl variants. I'm not going to lie. I've ordered pretty much all of them. And I pre-ordered an earbook, which I'm really excited for because that earbook does have 4 bonus tracks. It has 3 alternate versions of Into the Sun, and there is a bonus track called Out of Control. I believe Marcus Grauskopf wrote that bonus track. And to be honest, I've not heard it because typically most record labels do not send the bonus tracks in the promo. Some do, but not everybody does. Most people don't. So I have not heard that song. So I've had a lot of people ask me if I've heard it, and I have not heard that track. But anyway, you are going to have pre-order links in the show notes to pre-order the album. Okay, so now that I've gotten through the details, I'm going to start this review off by recapping something that happened back in December of 2024. So Andi Deris, someone who has come on this show since the very beginning, came on the program to talk about the live album, talk about the upcoming album, talk about the band. And when I asked him the question, how he compares the new Helloween album to the previous self-titled one, this is what he had to say. Check out this interview clip. How would you compare this upcoming album to the self-titled record?
I'd say it's much more easy listening because there's less constructed stuff on it. It's more flowing with the wind, so to say. Mm-hmm. It's very, very positive. So I would rather say it's more happy Helloween.
Okay.
Than the other album. I think it's a bit more. Yeah, the flow is for my taste not as edgy as the last album, which was cool. Have like edgy stuff.
Yeah,
but I think we should have more or less some counterpart to edgy, more exhausting things. Like the last album for me was great to listen through. It was edgy, it was heavy, it was complicated here and there. But after listening to it, then I needed a pause. It was very extensive. What's the right word? I'm only a German here. It was exhausting.
Yeah, I gotcha.
after this album, I needed some break. Put it that way. I loved it. I still love it, but it's demanding.
Yeah.
I think the next album would be much more easy listening. I think much more enjoyable to sing along. There are lots of parts in there. So I would rather describe it as a more happy Helloween album.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the best description.
And that's Andi Deris talking about the new upcoming album, Giants and Monsters, in comparison to the self-titled album. Now, mind you, there was no album title released at that point because, again, this is at the very beginning of December 2024. But there were a few key things he said that I 100% agree with, and I understand what he meant by them based on that interview clip now that I've heard the record. So, first of all, folks, I'll tell you right now, I like this album a lot better than the self-titled. The self-titled was good, but if you listen to some of the things that he said, for example, he used the word exhausting. He also said this album was a lot easier to listen to and that it flowed better. And I 100% agree with all of that. And now having heard the album quite a bit, I get where he's coming from. Now, when he says something like exhausting, keep in mind, and this is how I interpret this, and at some point, I'll have Andi on down the road and we can, elaborate on that and talk about it. But when you use the term exhausting to describe something, or the album seems to flow better, or that, the album is easier to listen to, I think a lot of his feelings with this new album compared to that one is because they've had the experience of recording the previous self-titled album together. So let's keep in mind, when they went into the last Helloween album, the self-titled Helloween album, they were in uncharted territory. Because, number one, you're bringing in another singer, and really technically two singers with Kai Hansen and another guitar player. And you have to make this, this whole 7-piece band work in the studio as far as recording this record, especially when writing and recording songs. So they are all in uncharted territory as a 7-piece. And that was a 5-piece. The 5 guys that have been in the band for the last 20 years, obviously before, Kai and Kiski rejoined, those guys have been together a long time. But now you're bringing in 2 more members, and you really have to get to know those guys, and those guys have to get to know you. So you are in uncharted territory. There's a lot of work that has to go into it. Like when Andy's writing songs, he has to get, to know some of the tendencies of Michael Kiske when he's, recording stuff in the studio. Kai Hansen is writing music for the first time with someone like Andi Deris and collaborating with, Michael Wyckoff for the first time in decades. There's so much uncharted territory these guys had to go through to record that first self-titled album. Now, when you go into this next album, Giants and Monsters, they have already had the experience of the previous album. These guys know each other a lot better based on the experiences from the previous self-titled album. They know each other's tendencies a lot more. I'm sure there were things that they look back on that they think they can do better. You have more trust between each other as a 7-piece now that you have made that first album together. Plus, you kept the same production team going into this next album. And I think a lot of that made this new Helloween album that's coming out flow a lot better, feel a lot better. And I'm going to be honest with you, listening to this brand new album that comes out in August, you can definitely tell in the songwriting, and you can just tell by the feel of the record. He talked about the flow of the album, for example. And when you say flow of the album, how well the songs go together, how well the track listing kind of flows through the record. With this record, it is a lot better, I think, than the self-titled album. I went back and listened to the self-titled album. I like it. I like it quite a bit. There are some amazing tracks on there. But I have to tell you, Giants and Monsters, from a songwriting standpoint, and just the way the album feels as compared to the last one, I think it's a lot better. And I think it's a lot better because of the experience these guys had making the previous album. And what did I say? If you remember the episode, the segment in one of my episodes where I talked about why I think this next Helloween album will be better than the previous one, this is exactly why. And for those of you that missed that interview, I will put it in the show notes, but I get where he's coming from. I like the songs on this album for the most part as a collective group. I like the songs on the new album better than the previous one. And not only that, but I think they made better use. You know, when you go through that self-titled album, the reason there was so much uncharted territory, you're writing for 3 singers. And you have to get to know those singers' tendencies on these records, who's going to sing where and what people are comfortable with and what they like to do, what they don't like to do. This new album, you pretty much know that going into it. So you don't have to deal with the stress of trying to figure that out. So let's get into a few things I noticed when I started listening to this, and then I'm going to get into a track-by-track review. So first thing is, Kai Hansen sings a little bit more than he did on this previous album. At least that's how I feel about it. And speaking of Kai Hansen, the 2 songs that he wrote, those 2 tracks, in my opinion, are 2 of the best songs that man has ever written. He also revisits a lot of the alien / sci-fi topics that he's done, in the past with gamma rays, which I think is really cool. Andi Deris wrote a song on here, and actually Sasha wrote a song on here as well. The lyrics of both of those songs hit home with me on a personal level. They may not hit home with a lot of you out there, but for me personally, the lyrics of both of those tracks were very thought-provoking for me due to a personal experience of mine, and I'll get into that when I get into those songs. But I think the song Into the Sun that Andy wrote, lyrically, it's one of, probably in my opinion, my favorite song he's ever written from a lyrical standpoint. Then we get to Sasha Gerstner. I got to be honest, folks. The 2 songs he wrote, in my opinion, the man has written about 30 songs for this band, maybe a little bit more than that if you count bonus tracks. These are the 2 best tracks I think he's ever written. And I'm going to get into that when I go to the song-by-song review. So, again, the band seems more cohesive. They seem more relaxed. I can't stress enough that I like this album better than the last one. And I thought the last one was excellent. So with that said, let's get into the song-by-song review. Track number 1, Giants on the Run. Right away, when I heard this, after the intro, I knew right away that Andi Deris wrote it. It has a very trademark intro to songs that he has written in the past. This is a very epic, really kick-ass traditional power metal song. And to be honest with you, it's the one, like when I listen to this album, you cannot think of another song on this record that would be fit for the opening track. And on top of that, this is probably one of the best opening songs to any album Helloween has ever put out. Andy sings a majority of the vocals, and Kai Hansen sings in different places in the song as well, especially in the middle parts. So, really great opening track, to be honest. And I think a lot of traditional Helloween fans will be really happy with that song. Savior of the World, track number 2. That is written by Mr. Michael Wyketh. It reminds me of something you could hear off of Keeper 2. Best way to describe it. Michael Kiske sings on it, and hearing Michael Kiske sing with Wykie's music again, I think is awesome. But that song really reminds me of something that could have come out during the Keeper 2 era. probably the best way to describe that song. It doesn't sound like any of those tracks as far as like it's not like a clone of Eagle Fly Free or anything like that. But if you were to put that on Keeper 2, in my opinion, I think it would fit right on that album. Very, very good track. Very traditional as far as Wyke's traditional songwriting, and a perfect follow-up to the first song on this album. Track number 3, A Little Is a Little Too Much. Now, this song is kind of a more standard straight-ahead rock song, and it's written by Andi Deris. And this is a song that would make a great single. Now, maybe they'll release it as a single. I don't know. As of right now, and as of this recording, there's only one single that's out. But this song is really, really cool. And I don't know why I get this vibe, but when I listen to it, it has almost like this futuristic sound to it. I don't know how to really I'm trying to figure out how to put that into words, but it's really cool because Andi Deris and Michael Kiske are taking turns, like, switching off vocals during the song, switching off vocals during the verses, and singing the choruses together. A really catchy, really great hard rock song. It's probably a little over 3 minutes, but definitely a song that would make a really awesome single for this album, especially since a majority of the singles Helloween has ever put out have been more of the straight ahead rock songs. So definitely a lot catchier, in my opinion, than This Is Tokyo. Just my own preference, but definitely an incredible track. Now we get to the first song on this album by Kai Hansen. We Can Be Gods. I mentioned that Kai revisited the alien / sci-fi themes on the songs he wrote for this album. One thing about this song is it's very unpredictable. Like, there's a lot of twists and turns that you don't expect it to take. Not only from the way the song is written, but you never know who is going to sing what vocal line next. And I don't know if that was intentional, but all three guys sing on the album. Kai, Kiske, Deris, all three of them sing on it. Hearing Andi singing on songs that Kai Hansen has written is just a really, really cool thing. 20 years ago, I'll be honest, I don't think, if you were to ask me if that would ever happen, I probably would have never guessed it would happen, but it has. This is a really cool song. The first thing I thought of when I heard this track, especially when you hear the vocal melodies coming out of the verses into this bridge part before the chorus, the vocal melodies remind me of something you could hear, or that could have appeared on the Gamma Ray album, Somewhere Out in Space. I think Somewhere Out in Space is probably one of the top 10 best power metal albums of all time, but it has that feel to it. The song doesn't sound really like any of them, but that one vocal melody reminds me of that album. And it is a sci-fi and space themed, there's sci-fi and space themed lyrics. So obviously it would make sense that you would have that feeling, but some of the vocal melodies really remind me of Somewhere Out in Space. And when you listen to the song, you'll understand what I mean by that. If you're looking for a kick-ass, traditional, old-school sounding Helloween song, you're going to love this track, because this, in my opinion, is one of the best songs Kai Hansen has ever written. Track number 5, Into the Sun. This is the ballad on the album that everybody has been asking about. This song, when I first heard the lyrics, and Andi Deris wrote the lyrics, and I mentioned before, the lyrics had a profound impact on me, which I'll get into here in a second. The lyrics reminded me of some kind of reawakening or some kind of awakening. And then after asking around, I found out it's about reincarnation. When I think of this song, I think of the fact that they could easily, in a live set, like in the live set when they do Forever in One Neverland and they put the chairs on stage and Kiske and Deris sing the song together, this song could easily be a track just like that, where they could do that live and sing that song live in this manner. And not that I would want to see Forever and One replaced in the set, but this would be a phenomenal song to do that with live. But the lyrics really hit me pretty hard. And actually a lot of Andi's lyric writing really has had a pretty big impact on me. But this song in particular, because I was in an accident, I was hit by a lightning bolt, for lack of a better term. And one of the thoughts going through my head is this the end, or am I going to come back in a different way? That was something that I had thought in my head. And when I heard the lyrics, I immediately went back to when that happened. And the song really, from a personal standpoint, really had a profound impact on me. And folks, this is my favorite song Andi wrote for the album. Not just because I like the track itself and the music, but the lyrical theme really hit home with me personally. Now we get to the single, This Is Tokyo, the only single so far that has been released at the time of me recording this. I did a review on it. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but after the intro, right away, I knew Andi Deris had written this song within the first probably 5 or 6 notes. A very traditional hard rock style, straight ahead rock song that Andi has done really well with for, probably almost 40 years now, ever since the first Pink Cream 69 album. And again, most of you liked the song. There were a few of you that didn't, but rest assured, folks, the people that didn't like it, it is not indicative of what the entire album sounds like. Now, as far as paying tribute to the Japanese fan base, I understand why Helloween would do that. Before I get into track 7, let me get into the Japanese fan base a little bit and why Andi would write a song like this. The Japanese fan base, and I can attest to this, and I'm sure folks like Waiki and everybody else that has been, everybody that's been in the band for so many years and decades, and Sasha and I talked about this in a recent interview, they are one of the most consistent fan bases in heavy metal. And they have supported this music, not just supported Helloween, but have supported this music regardless of whatever trends were going on in any other country. In fact, a lot of metal bands that stuck around in the 90s when the music really wasn't doing well were making money and making their living solely because the Japanese fan base still supported these bands as much as they did in the 80s. And they have always been there. And they are such a unique people and a unique culture. There's an interview with Sasha Gerstner. And in that interview, we talked about that. I'll put that interview in the show notes. He was talking about we were talking about the signing session from when Sasha first joined. And people were bringing them gifts as they were bringing stuff up to get signed because they were so happy and supportive of the band. And I can tell you, folks, that's how those people are over there. They are wonderful people. I shop and buy a lot of vintage camera gear from vendors in Japan. And I'll give you an example. I bought a camera lens a couple years ago. And the guy and his wife wrote me a thank you letter, not typed it, wrote it out to thank me for buying the lens, and then wrote that same thank you note in Japanese below it. And then his wife sent me like an origami, which was, it looked like an octopus. I could be wrong. But they just do little stuff like that. And they are such a wonderful group of people. And so it's very fitting that Andi not only wanted, in the band too, wanted to pay tribute to the Japanese fan base. But if you look at the press release, which I read, and there's a little blurb from the press release in the notes of the song. He talks about his first ever #1 anything musically was in Japan when he was in Pink Cream 69. And it was very fitting that he wrote it in that same style of songwriting that he's been doing since the Pink Cream 69 days. Hell, even if you look at Andi's first solo album, I mean, he was doing, I believe there's a television appearance on YouTube where he does an acoustic version of a song on a TV show in Japan. That is how supportive they have always been of this band and their career, and Andi's musical career, and just in heavy metal in general. And hell, look at Gamma Ray, for example. Kai Hansen's other band. Super supportive of Gamma Ray. So that's why they would pay tribute to those fans. And that song, I think, is actually very good. And it's a very fitting tribute. And the style in which he wrote it, I think, was great, because you're paying tribute to the fans through the lyrics. And since your first number one anything, album, song, whatever, was in Japan, you write it in the same sort of style that you were doing in Pink Cream 69. Okay. Track number 7. One of my favorite songs on the album. Universe, Gravity for Hearts. This is one of the best Helloween songs that I've ever heard. And in my opinion, easily one of the best 2 songs Sasha Gerstner has ever written for this band. Folks, a lot of you, back when the self-titled album came out, one of the biggest gripes people were complaining about was that the song Golden Times should have been on the album. And Sasha and we touched on this during our recent interview. But the thing is, with Helloween, they write so many really great songs. Those bonus tracks really make it worth buying the special edition of the album. And typically they end up on streaming sites anyway eventually. But for those of you that, and the thing about Golden Times, the reason people loved it was a traditional sounding Helloween song, and you had Michael Kiske singing on it. Well, folks, guess what? Universe, Gravity for Hearts is an 8-minute epic. It is a very traditional sounding Helloween song. The vocal performance of Michael Kiske in this song is unbelievable. And Kai Hansen also sings on this song, especially on a lot of the parts in the middle of the track. I am not exaggerating when I say that I think this is one of the best songs, probably one of the best 2 songs Sasha has ever written. And to talk more about it, let's go back to the interview I just did with Sasha Gerstner, where he talks about writing this track. Check it out.
It's great to see now that we're doing this interview run, how well people are reflecting on what you had on mind when you were writing the song, because most of the times you have a certain vibe when you do something creatively, but you don't know how people will soak that in, and if they would reflect the same feeling, and what I received so far is exactly the things you said, and it's kind of making me happy to see that it worked, because especially Universe was very tough to create, because it really took me a couple of days to connect all the parts and in a demo period, So what I typically would do if I write songs, I would play an instrument. It would be guitar or synthesizer, and I would play around and do some sound design. That's what I basically do, just for fun, And then most of the times, at the same time, I start singing. So for me, it's always about the vocals. So vocals are always hero for me. So I start playing around, doing some sound design, and start singing, and then something's just coming up. It could be either be phonetically nonsense, so I would just start to sing something that sounds English, but it doesn't make sense. And in that process, most of the time there comes some hook up to my mind, And with this song, it happened the same way. I was creating this super dystopian clean guitar sound, and I started singing, and I suddenly had that word universe coming in. I don't want to be too esoterical about it, but it was just being something that was coming up, and then it was evolving to what it is now. It was like I woke up the next morning. I was starting recording. I woke up the next morning, and I had a pretty good first verse, and then I thought like, okay, I have to continue. I was like really into it so much to finish the song. I had a feeling it's something that's gonna be big, and I knew it will be probably a pretty long song, because things started to develop on my mind while I was doing parts. It was like, okay, and there will be, I want to do this part, and I want to go into another in a breakdown, and so it was really a journey for me, and doing a song like this was just like giving birth to an idea,
Mm-hmm.
and also like lyrical wise. I think what happens now with me in this day and age is that I kind of mature up with my writing. It was always fun for me to write songs, and like you said, I'm like 22 or 23 years in a band, and when I joined the band, I was 25 years old, so pretty young by that time. But I was already accepted, and they already wanted to have my song ideas, and it was fun to do that. But I was like very naive by that time. Like I didn't think too much about it, and I also didn't know when it came to lyrics and subjects. On the first record we did together, I had a lot of help from Andi, who's a great songwriter. What he does is impressive, also over such a career span, lifespan that he has, delivering always high quality songs, and that was really inspiring for me. But I had the appreciation already, but I don't think my songs were as mature as they are now. That's at least how it feels for me.
And that is Sasha talking about Universe Gravity for Hearts. For those of you complaining about the song Golden Times being left off the regular Helloween album on the self-titled album, not only will you love this song, but it's a lot better than Golden Times. It's really that great. And I got to be honest, I give Sasha all the props in the world for doing this. And if you listen to that interview clip, the way he described it, it didn't even take him that long to write this song. At least get the basics of it down. Obviously, you are going to refine it in the studio, but just coming up with the basic ideas did not take him that long. And that is how talented that dude is. Really, really excited. I can't wait for people to hear this track, to be honest. The next song, I don't know what track number it is. Track number 8, Hand of God. So I will go back to when I said the song Andi Deris wrote, Into the Sun, had a profound impact on me. Hand of God, not only as a song had an impact on me, but so did the lyrics. And again, let's go back to that recent interview I did with Sasha Gerstner, where he talks about this track.
As you said, it's maybe something that's a little bit different from what we did before. Although I have to say, the band did a Dark Ride album as well, right? And where it was pretty different to what they did before. Mm-hmm. And I kind of enjoy that we sometimes have that discussion in the band with certain people when it's about what is Helloween about, or what is a Helloween song, and I keep saying, like, with the albums we made, we're able to do a lot of different styles because the band was experimenting a lot in the past, and that gave the band the range, because there were always fans who were appreciating that. Of course, you have like the diehard old school 80s metal fans who didn't appreciate it as much, but being experimental was giving us the possibility to spread out a little bit creatively, and with that song, it's something that I knew I can do, you know, and I knew that probably Andy will be keen of that, and that's why I also was suggesting him to sing the song, because I thought it would be perfect for him, you know, and that was absolutely the case. He loved it from the beginning, you know. And lyrical wise, it's something. Now you said like we're 7 months divided between each other. We come in at an age now where you definitely know this journey is going to end at some time, you know. And so and you think about those things, and I was just thinking like everything you do in life is adding up and summing up to a certain extent. And don't want to be too Christian about this, but it was more metaphorical speaking. Will there be a hand of God reaching out for you because you did the right things, you did the right choices? You know, that's what the song is basically about. It's about the choices you made in life, and the last moment when you close your eyes. Metaphorically speaking, will it be a good summary of what you have done?
That is Sasha Gerstner talking about the song Hand of God. Again, the lyrics, I talked about the accident I had. The theme of this song, that was another thing going through my head, what he just described the lyrics to be. And here's the other thing about Hand of God that I love. Every Helloween album, there's somebody that writes and records something that is so much different than what the band has done in the past. You always have one song on one of these albums, because Helloween is one of those bands that's never been afraid to take risks. Folks, this song is unlike anything they've ever done. But when you hear it, and you hear the awesome guitar parts in the middle, and you hear the melody lines, Andy's vocals, you'll understand why I like this song as much as I do. Definitely one of my favorites on the album. Track number 9, Under the Moonlight. This is another song by Michael Weikath. And actually, of the two songs Weike has on this album, I like this one the best. And, you know, you kind of get out of this more epic and, you know, darker themed stuff from Universe and, of course, Hand of God to this kind of more upbeat and positive sounding track right before the last song in the album. And I think it fits perfectly where they placed it on this record. It is a traditional Weike song, a little bit, you know, weirdly enough, it's a little bit different than what he's done before. Like, if you go back to this previous self-titled album, he had a lot of interesting stuff Weike did. You had Robot King, you know, Down in the Dumps was probably my favorite of the 3 songs that he wrote for the self-titled album. And this track, Under the Moonlight, kind of goes along with, it sounds like Weike, but I cannot think of another song he's written that it reminds me of. It definitely doesn't sound like Savior of the World. But actually, I like this track a lot, and I like it the best out of the 2 songs he wrote for this album. And now, lastly, we get to the last song in the album, Majestic. Again, an 8+ minute song, a kick-ass, epic power metal song. And for those of you that love Kai Hansen, you will absolutely love this track. All 3 singers are, of course, on it. And by the way, Under the Moonlight was sung by Michael Kiske, just so you know. Majestic is the perfect way to end a record. It really is. Some people might try to compare this to Skyfall, but to be fair and honest with you, I think just like We Can Be Gods, I think Majestic is one of the best songs Kai Hansen has ever written. Absolutely incredible. I am extremely impressed with the job Kai did in writing this track. And everybody sounds incredible on this track. And, honestly, they all sound incredible on the album, but the singers and the vocal parts are absolutely incredible. Again, if you like the traditional epic power metal stuff that Helloween has done, you are going to love this track. And it is the perfect way to end an album. I like it better than Skyfall. Skyfall was a really good song, but I like this track a lot better. So there you have it, folks. My overview and review of the new Helloween album, Giants and Monsters. It goes without saying this is obviously going to be an album of the year candidate. But as I said, I think this album flows better. I think the songwriting is better. And you can definitely tell the band and the production team took what they learned on the previous self-titled album and made this album better. That's the best way to say it. That's all I have for you on this record, folks. Again, I have pre-order links in the show notes, a link to the Helloween store, and a link to Rainy Phoenix Music with a list of places you can order it worldwide. I'm interested to hear what you think of my review, what you think of my description of these songs. And once you hear the album, I'm curious what you think of the album in the comments. So with that said, folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Stay metal.